Today I'm going to speak on a topic which is of very crucial importance for India. That is our national aim. देखिए, किसी को समझ में नहीं आ रहा है कि हिंदुस्तान में हो क्या रहा है. Nobody can understand what is going on in this country. Total confusion, like people groping in the dark. You don't know which way we have to go, what is our way ahead, what has happened to us, what is the correct path. So I have come to explain all this because this is of utmost importance for the whole nation. And therefore, you will give me a little time and bear with me, because what I'm going to explain to you is something very vital for this country. देखिए, our national aim must be to abolish the massive poverty, massive unemployment, appalling level of child malnutrition, skyrocketing prices of essential commodities, almost total lack of proper health care and good education for the masses. These huge socio-economic problems we have to abolish. This is our clear-cut national aim. On this there will be no compromise. I'm not a Democrat. I don't permit freedom of speech and all. If you want to say that there should be poverty, there should be hunger, there should be unemployment, I'm not going to permit it. In that sense, I'm dictatorial. I don't believe in accepting nonsense. So this should be our clear-cut national aim. Some people say we have the fastest growing economy and our GDP is improving and all lies. What is the truth? The truth is every second child in India is malnourished. According to Global Hunger Index, if you go on Google, you will find we were at position number 101 out of 125 countries surveyed, but in the last 5 years we have slipped to position number 107. So we have dropped by 6 places. 6 places we have dropped. Out of 125 countries surveyed, and more than half of our children are malnourished, stunted, wasted. This is the reality of our country. About unemployment, 12 million youth are entering the job market in India every year. 12 million, 1.2 crores. But less than 500,000 jobs are being created in the organized sector of the Indian economy. So where do the remaining 11.5 million go? They become hawkers, vendors, bouncers, stringers, criminals, beggars, suicides. Girls become prostitutes. If one chaprasi job, PN's job is advertised by the government, there are thousands of applications, many of them MSc, MBA, PhDs, engineers begging for a chaprasi job. This is the truth about your country. And the position is getting worse. Prices, you all know, they are skyrocketing. आसमान छू रही है दाम. Essential commodities, आटा, दाल, जो गरीब आदमी खाता है. How the poor man is existing, I can't understand. Healthcare. You see, proper healthcare is not available to the poor man. I live in Delhi, and I know in Delhi there are some very good hospitals. Max, Fortis, Apollo, Medanta, and so on. State-of-the-art hospitals. But they are exorbitantly expensive. The poor man can't go there. So where does the poor man go for medical treatment? He goes to quacks. See, quackery is rampant. I know in North India, I had cases before me when I was judge of the Allahabad High Court. Quacks had set up polyclinics. And when I made inquiries, they had no proper degree. They had a degree from Bihar. And when I made some inquiries, it was found there's so-called medical college, there's no land there, there's no building there, there's no medical college, but certificates are being given. And these quacks, they are several times the number of regular doctors. But what can the poor man do? He can't afford to go to a regular doctor because it's very expensive. So he goes to quacks. In Hindi they are called Jhola Chhap doctors. Jhola Chhap. I don't know what they are called in Kannada. If you go to All India Medical Institute, which is one of the premier medical institutes in India, in Delhi, it looks like a railway station. Thousands of people are sitting there, nobody bothered about them. For days they are sitting there, nobody cares for them. And just across the road there is Safdarjung Hospital. The same is the situation there. This is the position of your healthcare. Education. See, fortunately, you people have some good education, but how many schools are like that? In India, most schools are in a horrible condition. There are no proper teachers. The teachers are appointed by paying some bribe. It's a job, not a teacher should be a man on a mission. Teaching is a mission, but most teachers, they just give some bribe to get a job. Okay. This is the situation of most schools, the level of education which is provided. So, now how are you going to abolish all this? Because this has to be a national aim. This has to be abolished. This can't be tolerated. It can only be abolished by transforming India into a modern industrial giant like another China or United States. Now, how do you go about doing it? Because you see, unless you transform India into a modern industrial giant, you can never abolish poverty or unemployment or malnutrition, lack of healthcare, etc. Because even for setting up a small primary school, it costs a huge amount of money. You have to buy land for the school, then you need money for the building. You need money to pay salaries to the teachers, etc. Where is all this money going to come from? Money doesn't fall from the sky. It comes from a highly developed, large-scale industry. That alone can generate the wealth which can provide for the welfare of your people. So we have to transform India into a modern industrial giant, and we have all the potential for it. You know, I go to America very often. My children are there. And I'm often invited to universities to give talks. What I find is American universities are packed with Indian or Pakistani professors of mathematics, of engineering, of science, full of them. We have a huge pool of technical talent which is required to transform a country from a backward country to a modern industrial giant. So we have no shortage of technical talent. We have brilliant scientists, we have brilliant engineers. In 15, 20 years, we can transform India into another China or USA. See, Japan, I'll give you one example. Japan was a very, very backward country under the shoguns. That was before the Meiji Restoration of 1868. Before 1868, Japan was ruled by the shoguns. Well, technically the emperor was there, but the real power was in the hand of the shoguns, who kept Japan very backward and feudal. It was a poor country. But in 1868, the Meiji Restoration took place. And power passed into the hands of the advisors of the emperor, who were modern-minded people in Japan. They sent their representatives to America and Europe, and they got engineers from there. They set up technical institutes in Japan. They set up industries in Japan. Within 10-15 years, Japan was transformed from a backward feudal country into a modern state. It just takes 10-15 years. And that's what we can do. We can become like USA or China in 15 years. There's no difficulty. We have all that technical talent. Now here I must tell you one thing. See, before the Industrial Revolution, which started in England in the first half of the 18th century, and then from England it spread to France and Germany and later to the USA and all. Before the Industrial Revolution, there were feudal societies everywhere. Now, in feudal societies, the methods of production are so primitive and backward कि वो हल चलता, खेती के लिए हल चलता है, ट्रैक्टर नहीं है. The tilling of the land was done by bullocks, not with tractors. So very little wealth could be generated by those primitive methods of production. And since very little wealth could be generated in feudal society, therefore, only a handful of people, the kings and aristocrats, the millas, they could be rich. Rest of the people, 90-95% people had to be poor. Because when the wealth generated is so little that only a handful of people can be rich. This situation drastically changed with the coming of the Industrial Revolution. Now modern industry is so powerful and so big that enough wealth can be generated to give high standard of living and decent life to everybody on earth. Everybody can get a decent life. But what is the reality? Reality is, although 300 years have passed since the Industrial Revolution, yet 2/3 or maybe 3/4 of the world population is very poor. Why? It should not have been so. In 300 years, the whole world should have been enjoying a high standard of living. Why is it happened that 3/4 of the people of the world are still backward and poor, particularly in the underdeveloped countries? Why? See, the reason now, you have to hear me very carefully. See, this world is really not one world. ये एक दुनिया नहीं है, दो दुनिया है. Two worlds in this world. One is the world of the developed countries, which means North America, Europe, Japan, Australia. Now even China has joined their ranks. The other is the world of the rest, the underdeveloped countries. That means the countries of Asia, except Japan and China. Then Africa, Latin America. They're all underdeveloped countries. That is the second world. दो दुनिया है इस दुनिया में. And there is a secret rule among the developed countries, but very strong rule, but they keep it very secret. They will never tell it openly, that underdeveloped countries must not be allowed to become developed countries. Under no circumstances must India be allowed to become a developed country. Why? Why is there such a rule? Now let me explain this to you. Now to explain this to you, you have to understand a bit of economics. Because politics is concentrated economics. Unless you understand economics, you will not be able to understand politics. So permit me to go a little into economics. See, cost of labor is a big chunk of the total cost of production. And if the cost of labor is less, then the cost of production is less. And if the cost of production is less, you can sell your goods at a cheaper price as compared to your rival who has expensive labor. See, there's competition in the market. One businessman eliminates another businessman not with guns or bombs or swords, but by underselling him. For example, if you have a shop where you are selling a loaf of bread for 50 rupees, and next to your shop is my shop, and I'm selling the same high quality and size loaf of bread for 40 rupees. You are selling for 50, I'm selling for 40. What will happen? I will eliminate you by underselling you. In other words, all your customers will leave you and become my customers, and you will be eliminated. Now the same thing happened on national and international level. To give you an illustration, China was a very poor and backward country before their revolution of 1949. Before 1949, China, 95% Chinese were living in horrible poverty. They were landless peasants living in, बहुत बुरा हाल था, miserable conditions. But after 1949, the leaders who came to power in China, they rapidly industrialized China. They set up a massive industrial base in China. Now that massive industrial base, coupled with the cheap labor available in China, enables the Chinese to undersell the whole world. I often go to America. The supermarkets there are packed with Chinese goods because the Chinese will sell the same high quality good which the American manufacturer can sell, but at half its price because the labor is cheap. Everything turns on cost of labor. Countries which have cheap labor have a distinct advantage over countries which have expensive labor. Like India, for example, has very cheap labor. If we set up a massive industrial base, we can undersell the whole world and Western industries will collapse. Who will buy the expensive goods of USA or Canada or Europe when we will sell the same high quality good at 1/3 the price? Because our labor is cheap. See, everything turns on cost of labor. And countries which have cheap labor have distinct advantage over countries which have expensive labor. Now, if you set up a massive industrial base, as I said, Western industries will collapse, throwing millions and millions of people out of employment. Will they permit that? No, they will oppose that tooth and nail. And how do they oppose it tooth and nail? They do so by making Indians fight each other on the basis of religion, caste, language, etc. Now, once you get this concept clear, things will become clear to you. Why did partition take place in 1947? Again, because these developed countries wanted Hindus and Muslims to fight each other. Why did this Pahalgam attack on 22nd April 2025 took place? Same reason, because selectively 26 Hindus were killed. And therefore those who did this selective killing, their obvious intention was that Hindu-Muslim hostility should be increased. And who will benefit? Again, the developed countries will benefit if Hindus and Muslims fight each other. So the same game is continuing all through. Once you have your basic concept clear, you can understand what is going on in the world. Otherwise, you will not understand anything. So, now see, therefore, the interest of a country like India directly conflicts with the interest of the developed countries. The developed countries' interest is that India must not be allowed to become a modern industrial giant. It must be kept poor and backward and semi-feudal. Our interest, on the other hand, is that we must become a modern industrial giant, because unless we do so, we will never be able to abolish poverty and unemployment and hunger and lack of healthcare, etc. So our interest directly conflicts the interest of the developed countries and the developed of the underdeveloped countries like India. How will this contradiction be resolved? This is a very sharp contradiction. They will not allow you to become developed, and we must become developed. This is direct contradiction. Now, to explain this, first, I want to go a little bit into history, because then I will be able to explain to you how this contradiction can be resolved. First of all, you must understand what is India. आपको मालूम है भारत है क्या, हिंदुस्तान है क्या? Nobody knows. 143 crore people living in India, not a single one can say what is India. None of you can tell. I'll tell you. See, this is a country of immigrants. It is like North America. The difference between North America and India is, in North America, people came mainly from Europe over the last, say, 500 years. In India, people have been coming for 10,000 years. But broadly, we are a country of immigrants. 93-94% people living in India today, including maybe all of you. You are not original inhabitants of India. In a sense, you are all foreigners. Your ancestors came mainly from Northwest. See, at one time it was believed that the original inhabitants of India were Dravidians and Aryans came from outside. Now this theory has also been disproved. Now the accepted theory is both Aryans and Dravidians were invaders. And who were the original inhabitants of India? They were the pre-Dravidian tribals known as Adivasis or scheduled tribes, like Bhils, Gonds, Santals, Todas of the Nilgiris. These people who were massacred in large numbers by our ancestors and driven into forests. They are hardly 5 or 6% of the Indian population today. They are the original inhabitants. Dravidians came from outside. See, it is claimed that we Dravidians are the original inhabitants. But this has been disproved. I'll give you two reasoning. Even today, there is a language in Baluchistan, which is part of Pakistan. in which a language spoken is called Brahui. Brahui. Please note it down in your mobile if you've got it. Brahui, which is similar to your Kannada or Tamil. Now this is surprise. You will be surprised. How is the South Indian language being spoken by 2 million people today in Balochistan? I've met many of those Brahui speakers. Their language is similar to your Kannada or Tamil. How? In Pakistan, there's a Dravidian language being spoken today. Obviously, this proves that some remnants of the Dravidians still have survived. And at one time, the Dravidians were living in this area, Pakistan area, and they were driven down maybe by Aryans or whoever. So that is one proof that even Dravidians were outsiders. And secondly, these pre-Dravidian tribals, these Bhils, Gonds, Santals, etc., they do not speak the Dravidian group of languages. You've got a Dravidian group of languages which includes Tamil, Kannada, Telugu, Malayalam, etc. These tribals do not speak the Dravidian group of languages. They speak a group of languages which are called Austric group of languages. Austric, which is very different from the Dravidian group of languages. So this also indicates that there are three layers. Aryans came from outside, Dravidians came from outside, original inhabitants were the pre-Dravidian tribals. See, people kept rolling into India for 10,000 years. Why? Except on 3 occasions, people went from India outside. One was the indentured labor which was sent by the Britishers to Fiji and Mauritius, British Guiana and so on as plantation labor in the 19th century. Second was a group of people on the western coast like Gujarat who went as traders to East Africa. And thirdly, the diaspora over the last 50 years, IIT graduates, doctors, the highly educated people who went to America and all. Except on these 3 occasions, nobody left India. Everybody kept coming into India. Why? The reason is that people migrate from uncomfortable areas to comfortable areas. Obviously, everybody wants comfort. Now, in those days, there was no modern industries. There were agricultural societies. What do you require for agriculture? For agriculture, you require level land, fertile soil, plenty of water for irrigation and so on. All this was in abundance in the Indian subcontinent. If you go from Rawalpindi to Bangladesh, deep south Kanyakumari, all level land, fertile soil, lakes, rivers, paradise for agriculture. So everybody kept rolling in for 10,000 years. Why should anybody go from India to, say, Afghanistan, which is covered with snow for several months in a year, rocky, uncomfortable, mountainous? Everybody wants comfort. So people kept and there's no extreme climate. I live in Delhi. The minimum temperature becomes, say, 5 degrees centigrade. It is not minus 30 degrees centigrade as in Russia and all. It is cold, but not killing cold. So it is tolerable. So the climate is relatively not so extreme. So people kept coming into India for 10,000 years because this was ideal for agriculture. And that is why there's so much diversity in India. Tremendous diversity. So many religions, so many castes, so many languages, so many ethnic groups, etc. You compare India with China. You see, you have a population of over 140 crores. So does China. Their population is also about 140 crores. But there's broad homogeneity in China. All Chinese have got Mongoloid faces. They look like Mongoloids. 95% Chinese belong to one ethnic group called the Han, H-A-N. They have one common written script called Mandarin. Mandarin is also a spoken language, but there are some other spoken languages like Cantonese and Hakka and all, but written language is the same. So there's broad, not absolute, but broad homogeneity in China. On the other hand, in India, there's tremendous diversity. So that is because whichever group of immigrants came into India brought their own religion, their language, their customs, their culture and so on. That is why, that explains the tremendous diversity in India, because this is a country of immigrants. So the only policy which can work in this country is the policy of the great Mughal Emperor Akbar. It is called Sulh-e-Kul. See, Akbar tried two policies. One, he tried to form a common religion called Deen-e-Ilahi, but that was a failure. But the second policy, this is Sulh-e-Kul, was a great success. Because Sulh-e-Kul means giving equal respect to all religions and communities. He is the father of the Indian nation. That is why the Mughal Empire lasted so long, for 300 years, because it was inclusive. It took everybody together. Akbar had in his own court Hindus on a very high level, like Raja Todarmal was the finance minister of the Mughal Empire, and Akbar and Birbal and Man Singh were great generals. So everybody was given respect. And that is the only policy of Sulh-e-Kul, which can keep this country together and take it on the path of progress. Presently, what has happened? In the constitution, it is mentioned secular. De jure, you are secular, but de facto, you are becoming Hindu. Now, if you make it like this, you are then treating non-Hindus as inferiors. And what will be the result? The people in the northeast, they are overwhelmingly Christians, like Nagas, Mizo, they are Christian. They will say, we will secede from India. You want to make this country a Hindu state, that means we must become inferior. This is not acceptable to us. We have our self-respect. We will not live in a country which treats us as inferiors. So the northeast states will secede. Kashmir is predominantly Muslim. They will say, we will secede. Sikhs are demanding Khalistan. You're going to have many partitions. This country will be balkanized. It will be broken up. If you adopt this policy that this will be a Hindu state, with some elements as you know, are trying to do. So, see, people criticize Islam. I can tell you, why did Islam spread in large parts of the world, from Spain to Indonesia? Some people said that Islam spread at the point of the sword. But which Arab army went to Indonesia, which is 90% or 95% Muslim? There was no Arab army going to Indonesia. So this is not correct that Islam spread because of force, by the sword. Islam spread because of the great message of equality. It treated everybody as equals. It gave social emancipation to the depressed classes. In our own Hindu society, we treat Dalits as inferior. At one time, they were treated almost like dogs. Islam spread in the world because of the great message of equality which the great prophet taught. That is why I respect the great prophet. And also, the prophet said, for knowledge, go even to China. So, of course, the word China is a metaphor. It means for knowledge, go wherever you can find it. At one time, it was a very rational religion. And that is why science developed a lot in the Arab countries at one time. So this is why Islam spread. But the communal people, now see, let me now clarify one thing. There was no communalism in our country before 1857. Please note this. 1857 के पहले कोई सांप्रदायिकता, फिरका परस्ती नहीं थी हिंदुस्तान में. Before 1857, Hindus and Muslims used to live like brothers and sisters, help each other. Hindus would participate in Eid and Muharram, Muslims would participate in Holi, Diwali. कोई problem नहीं था. It is true that the initial Muslim invaders who came into India, they broke a lot of Hindu temples. This is correct. Like Mahmud Ghazni broke the Somnath temple, it is correct. And many other invaders did the same. But the descendants of the Muslim invaders, like for instance, Babur was an invader, but his grandson Akbar was not an invader. He was born here in India, lived all his life in India. So the descendants of the Muslim invaders, they in fact, far from breaking temples, they would give grants to Hindu temples. See, this part of our history has been concealed in our history books. Our history books have been distorted by the British and their followers. The first part that the Muslim invaders broke temples, that is mentioned. Ki Mahmud Ghazni broke Somnath temple. But what is not mentioned was a 10 times longer period when the Muslim rulers, they promoted secularism. They gave grants to Hindu temples. They also it is all documented. These documents are in Persian, and for thousands of years, this happened. For example, Tipu Sultan, who belonged to your state, Karnataka, it is blamed that he was communal. Far from being communal, Tipu Sultan used to give annual grants to 156 Hindu temples. 156. If you don't believe me, you do one thing. You write down on your mobile, on Google, history in the service of imperialism. History in the service of imperialism. This was the name of a speech given by Professor B.N. Pandey in the Raj Sabha, Upper House of Indian Parliament, I think in 1978 or so. He was a professor of history in Allahabad University. Then he went as governor of Odisha. Then he gave this speech, History in the Service of Imperialism, where he has mentioned great details. See, the Muslim rulers, their 80-90% population was Hindu. And they realized that if they broke temples every day, there would be a revolt or some disturbance. Every king wants to live in peace and comfort. No king wants disturbances in his kingdom. So, in their own interest, the Muslim kings promoted secularism. They would give grants to Hindu temples. So it is absolutely incorrect that all the Muslim kings used to destroy Hindu temples. What happened the Mughals, except there's a controversy about Aurangzeb, otherwise the Mughals used to celebrate Holi, Diwali and so on. The Nawabs of Awadh used to organize Ram Leela and so on. See, what happened was in 1857, that is a watershed, you must understand this. 1857, the great mutiny broke out, in which Hindus and Muslims jointly fought against the British. Now, after suppressing that mutiny, the British decided that the only way to rule India was divide and rule. That is, make Hindus and Muslims fight each other. And you can see, if you go and read that speech on Google, History in the Service of Imperialism by B.N. Pandey, you will find mention of the letters coming from the Secretary of State for India in London to the British Viceroy, saying that make Hindus and Muslims fight each other. The dates of the letters are given, the name of that Secretary of State for India is given, the name of that Viceroy is given, the contents of the letter are given. Many examples you will find. So deliberate policy after 1857 was, to make Hindus and Muslims fight each other. There was no communal problem, no communal riots before 1857. All communal riots start after 1857. They were artificially created. See, the British collector would call the Hindu Panditji at night secretly, give him some money and say, from tomorrow start speaking against Muslims. Similarly, he would call the Maulana in the night, give him some money and say, from tomorrow start speaking against Hindus. Then agent provocateurs were hired. That some cow was slaughtered. Overnight, the carcass of the cow was thrown into a Hindu temple, and on the wall it was written, Allahu Akbar. So when Hindus would get up in the morning and read this, they would think all Muslims are evil people, bad people, and all kill a pig throw the carcass of the pig in the mosque and write on the wall Jai Shri Ram or Jai Bajrang Bali, so that when Muslims would get up, they would read this and they would think all Hindus are bad people. See, this policy was pursued year after year, decade after decade, from 1857. Then in 1909, the Minto-Morley reforms came. Separate electorates. Hindus can only vote for Hindu candidate, Muslim can only vote for Muslim candidate. Then Aligarh Muslim University was created. Banaras Hindu University was created. How can a university be Hindu or Muslim? University means universal for everybody. But no, Hindus and Muslims must be made to fight each other. So you must have a Hindu university, you must have a Muslim university. Then this idea was created that Hindi is the language of Hindus, Urdu was the language of Muslims. The truth was that Urdu was the language of everybody. Hindus, Muslims, Sikhs, padhe likhe logon, educated class were all writing and reading in Urdu. My grandfather only knew Urdu. Former Prime Minister Manmohan Singh told me that he writes all his speeches in Urdu. Urdu was the common language of everybody. But this, to create hatred between Hindus and Muslims, an artificial language called Hindi was created. Hindi is no language actually. The language of the common man is Hindustani, not Hindi. So the difference between the two is, see, in Hindi we say udhar dekhiye ya udhar dekho. In Hindustani we say that. Hindi mein kahenge udhar avlokan kijiye. Now, does the common man ever use the word avlokan? Common man says udhar dekho ya udhar dekhiye. He will never say udhar avlokan kijiye. But you have to create a language artificially. Hindi is an artificially created language. The language of common man was Hindustani and the language of the educated class was Urdu. But again, to make Hindus and Muslims fight each other. So, this policy chalti gayi, year after year, decade after decade, ultimately resulting in partition. देखिए ये जो पाकिस्तान है ना, it is a fake country. पाकिस्तान कोई मुल्क नहीं है. It is part of India. It is bound to be reunited with India. Pakistan क्या है? Pakistan is Punjab, it is Sindh, it is Baluchistan. These were all part of India for 500 years from the time of Mughal Emperor Akbar. I have a lot of Pakistani friends. I talk to them on WhatsApp. हिंदुस्तानी में हम बात करते हैं, वो हिंदुस्तानी हमसे जवाब देते हैं. एक ही जुबान है. एंड कल्चर इज रियली बेस्ड ऑन लैंग्वेज, नॉट ऑन रिलीजन. तो हम लोग की कल्चर एक ही है, इंडियन और पाकिस्तानीज की. वी आर एक्चुअली वन कंट्री. पाकिस्तान तो फर्जी मुल्क है. इट इज बाउंड टू बी रीयूनाइटेड विद इंडिया. वो बनाया गया था इसलिए ताकि हिंदू मुसलमानों को लड़वाना है. द होल गेम ऑफ द डेवलप्ड कंट्रीज वाज दिस.